Welcome to Bandit's Keep. I'm Daniel. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about magic as a resource in your world. So I play, or currently have been playing, original Dungeons & Dragons for the past almost 2 years in my home campaign, and I've tightened up, we'll say, the reins on magic a little bit as far as spellcasting, and it's really changed the way the players look at magic and the value of magic in the world. So I thought I would talk about that a little bit today. So when we think about Vancian magic, if you want to call it that, meaning what they call fire and forget magic, if you played into the old school games, you probably have seen it. Basically what it means is, however you want to say it story-wise, it's fine. If you read Vance, you'll understand it. But basically, you sit down in the morning and you pack your spells. I'm going to take a sleep spell today, a magic missile, a charm person, a fireball, a read languages, and a confusion. And you put them in your little paper lunch bag. And as you go through the day, you take them out and you eat them, if I want to keep that metaphor going, but you take them out and you use them. And when you do, you cast upon the ground for the pigeons, the sleep spell. Oh, that might actually work. Then it's gone, right? You don't have it anymore. It's no longer in your bag. You have consumed it. It's in your spell book. You can go back to the spell book the next day, re-memorize, as they say, or repack it, however you want to say the spell, and use it again. Or you could choose a different spell. And what this does is it creates an idea that the players have to consider what might happen on the quest they are on. It also means that if they reach a spot where they need a spell to overcome it, which you should never reach a spot where you need a spell usually, but then basically they know that they could leave and come back, right? It creates that kind of a campaign. This is not the type of magic that, like, if you are playing a one-shot and you're going into a 5-room dungeon and you pick the spell read languages, that would be completely useless unless you had a lot of foreknowledge of what was in there, right? But then again, you never know what's going to be useful. This is why knowing what's going on, right? The system is designed for campaign play. It's designed to do research, to know what the dungeon's about. We might need this read languages spell. We might need a fireball, right? And once you understand that, you can prepare. You can take your iron rations, your sword, your helmet, your bag of spells. And because of that, it creates a different type of gameplay, a really fun type in my mind. The people that play magic users kind of gather around. They decide, what are you taking today? All right, I'm going to take a knock spell. I'm going to take you're going to take that. I'll take Dispel Magic. And then basically they team up. They work together as a team to take the proper amount of spells. Sometimes they do silly things like, okay, we need to go in here and charm all these council members. So everybody's going to take a charm person. And they go in there and they do it, right? It creates this different type of work. If you use a system where the PCs just know spells and they can cast whichever ones they want whenever, that creates a different type of resource. It creates one that is based on a reactive state versus a proactive state. And I like my players to have the mindset of being proactive. So this includes everything. This includes, we're crossing a desert, how much water / camels / food should we bring? What spells should we bring? Do we want to carry our spell books into this dungeon so that if we end up staying down there overnight, we can rememorize spells, or is it too risky because they might be destroyed and they're expensive? How do we get new spells? Where do they come from? This just creates a different type of play, which I find to be very fun. If you haven't done this, and it can be, everybody who's going to tell me nobody ever does this, my players came from Pathfinder to 5e to this. So this is not something that I've been playing with people since the 70s. This is something relatively new for our group to really, truly focus on for a long campaign. I've run lots of BX campaigns where they're shorter, like bursts, or they're kind of in and out. We're playing other games. And in those campaigns, we've had a similar thing, but we haven't dug into it as deeply as I do here. But I was thinking also about the idea that I had watched the Dungeons & Dragons movie a while back. And at one point, the sorcerer, the guy says, because they're all like, spell, or whatever. And he's just like, why does everybody want to find magic as the solution for everything? And it's funny. I think I felt exactly the same way. I'm with you. Why is it always, we need a spell? Why can't we? And it's funny, too, because the players just had this situation where they only had one charm spell on them, and they had this orc that they had captured. They took out 5 of the orc guards, and there was one orc, and they're like, we should charm him. That way we'll get the information. And then they were like, you know what, though? Then we'll use that spell. And what if we need it later? Let's see if we can just interact with this orc. And that's what we did. And it became a role-playing session. It could have been, boom, he was charmed, right? But instead it became, let's role play, let's intimidate, let's see what we can get. It creates a different kind of tension, right? This is basically part of, and they had more spell slots. So it's not like there was the last spell of the day. They had the other first level spells memorized. Again, in a game where, you have 5 slots and you can move the spells around, they would have charmed him right away. And that would have killed that fun interaction. So we can see how this is changing the way we play, and it's quite interesting. The other thing is I'm playing it by the rules in the sense that you have to research spells, meaning that, for instance, one of my players who's a little frustrated by it, but in a fun way, he has a 4th level spell slot that he cannot fill because he doesn't know any 4th level spells. And they haven't been able to stop long enough to find any because they're running around, fighting things and trying to save the world or whatever they're doing. So one of many worlds, as it would be. So they're like, they can't use that slot. So it becomes a thing. It's like, whoa, if we stop and spend a month to learn this spell, I'll have this powerful 4th level spell. But if we stop and spend a month, the enemies will move and change and move forward. So it becomes, again, another choice. What are we doing here? Do we want to take the time to learn the spell so that we can have the power in the future? Or do we want to continue what we're doing because that's more valuable? And the players have to decide that, right? Again, another good decision point. The other thing about having magic be a little bit more limited is that it can be more powerful. A charm spell can be devastatingly powerful when it's rare. When magic is too common, it by its nature has to be tamed, right? If you have a system where magic is, you're casting all the time, you need a way to balance it. So if casting is not a role to cast, let's say like DCC, and you can choose whatever spells you want, then by the nature of it, the spells become weaker and weaker. And you do see that. Relative power of spells in, let's say, OD&D compared to, well, certainly 5th edition, but even compared to like AD&D, it's a big difference. The spells in OD&D are more powerful. And that's because they're more rare. Rare, scarcity, power, value. This creates magic as a resource. If we think about a world where magic's common, it would be regulated, right? They would tell you, like, let's think like Harry Potter, right? I'm no expert in Harry Potter. This is just one I can think of where there's magic everywhere, right? But think about it. The good guys don't run around zapping people left and right because there's regulations. If they do that, they become hunted, right? There's like laws that say you can't use the magic to do all these things. And that's what you're going to have, right? You're going to have situations where it's like, well, you went to a magic school, so you're going to learn, read languages and detect magic, but we're not teaching you charm because charm is against our moral code. Then you've got this rebel over here that's got charm. That could also be interesting. So now you've got a place where magic's more plentiful, but the bad guys have all the good spells, right? What kind of challenge is that for your players when they've got fireball and charm and you have maybe sleep, right? You don't have some of the spells that they have and they don't have some of the spells that you have. I guess they would have access to them, but they won't take them because they can take fireball, right? And this creates, again, almost like an arms race of magic. And I do something similar to this with my clerics, where the evil clerics, anti-clerics, they cast the opposite spells. So they don't cast cure wounds, they cast harm. They don't cast light, they cast darkness. So you can tell an evil cleric because those are the spells they have, but also they don't have that healing, which means that if they get wounded, that they've got to retreat, right? Where the good spellcasters can heal, but they don't have the harming magic. So it's really interesting, and it's created a really fun way to balance the world using magic as a resource. I'd be interested to know how you use magic in your world. Do you use standard systems? And I'm not talking mechanically. Obviously this ties into the mechanics of it, but I mean more like, how does it affect your world? How does the resource management of magic change your world? And is that something that affects your world in a positive way? Is it something that makes the world the way you want to play it? Or is it one of those things where it's like, well, all right, we got to be careful here because everybody has magic, so now it's whatever. It becomes mundane and I can't impress somebody by casting a light spell. If you're in a place where nobody has any magic and you have a light spell, powerful. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. Also, check the description. You will find a link to my Discord server. Over there, you can join the conversation. And you'll find a link to my Patreon if you want to support the channel. I'll talk to you soon.